Hello, welcome to Wellness and Wisdom with Dr. Nadu Tuwakli, the podcast dedicated to empowering women over 40 to age gracefully, competently, and beautifully. I'm Dr. Nadu Tuwakli, a family doctor, preventive medicine specialist, author, teacher, mother, and expert in hormone replacement, anti-aging, and longevity. With decades of experience as a physician and as a woman embracing every stage of life, I'm here to share practical advice, expert insights, and inspiring stories to help you thrive in happiness, health, and appearance. Together with my guests, we'll explore topics that matter most to you, from navigating perimenopause and optimizing your health to redefining success in retirement and beyond. Let's celebrate the aging process with vitality and purpose, because your best years are still ahead. Subscribe now to add more life to your years and step into the best version of yourself. Welcome back to Wellness and Wisdom with me, Dr. Nadu Tuwakli, and Happy New Year. It's New Year's Day today, and it's a great time to take stock of where we want to be and where we are. Today, we are diving into a transformative discussion about the 6 pillars of health. These aren't the same old cliches that you've heard before. Don't eat cake, walk more. Instead, we will show you how to create a sustainable lifestyle plan, find the right lifestyle modification tools and assessments, and collaborate with your physician to achieve lasting wellness. By the end of this episode, you'll not only know how to stay healthy and prolong your life, but you'll also discover that investing in your health, how that saves you so much money in the long run. Ever wondered, who will take care of me when I'm old? The answer is simple. You will. Think about it. What if some of the money you're setting aside for long-term care could be redirected today towards strategies that reduce or eliminate the need for it? The good news, it's entirely possible, and this podcast will show you how. So what are the 6 pillars of health? Sleep, physical activity, diet, stress management, social connection, and avoiding toxic substances. These are the foundations of a healthy life, designed to keep you standing tall without relying solely on pharmaceutical or surgical pillars. While those can play a critical role as you get older, if needed, they work best as complements, not substitutes for a healthy lifestyle. These are the foundations that we're going to talk about today. For example, older adults often face challenges with pneumonia. By following the principles we'll discuss today, you can recover faster and keep your body resilient when it is hit by conditions like this. Ultimately, the question isn't who will take care of me when I'm older. It is how you can empower yourself to live well and thrive. And today we're going to show you exactly how to do that. So I'm speaking with one of my colleagues, Dr. Sara Bajuyo, and she is a family physician in South Bend, Indiana. And she's been a family physician since 2007. And she is going to talk to us about the 6 pillars of health. Welcome, Sara. Thank you so much for coming in on New Year's Day.
Thank you, Nadu. I'm so grateful to be here.
So spending on chronic diseases consumes a significant part of retirees' savings and the national budget. But can you give us an idea of what it might cost an individual annually, not counting nursing care?
The cost of chronic diseases is enormous, and I think a lot of people don't understand how that adds up over time. And the statistics are that it costs every American individual $13,000 to $14,000 a year to manage those chronic diseases. And that's a significant amount of money, especially as you think about getting older. Most people retire and have a Social Security benefit coming in, so they're on a very fixed income. So if more money is going out to take care of chronic diseases, that's less money to afford the other things that they would enjoy in life.
Can you give us an idea of how much chronic diseases is costing the country?
80% of healthcare dollars. So, 3 trillion or so spent in healthcare dollars every year, and 80% of that is spent on chronic diseases.
Which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yes.
Obviously, prevention is better than cure, but by the time you get to be a senior, talking about prevention may seem futile.
Mm-hmm.
But at this stage, as I pointed out, it is still well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about sleep. Why
Yes.
is sleep such a big deal?
Oh, sleep is so important for our health. Most people have heard the saying of how long you can go without food or water, but you really can't go that long without sleep. You'll go crazy. What I would want to tell your listeners is that we have this system in our brain that gets rid of all of the toxic substances. And so our lymphatic system in our body is responsible for that. But in our brain, we have a glymphatic system, and it really just operates during sleep. It requires our brain to shut down so that it can clean house and get rid of all the waste products from those cells. And so if we are sleep deprived, then our brain can't fully get rid of all of those toxic substances. And so it really just kind of sits around in the brain, and it's going to do cellular damage. So that looks over time like dementia or other neurological problems that can happen. It's, getting a good amount of sleep is typically 7 to 9 hours per night. That's what people should be aiming for.
And I think that people really don't understand the risks of chronic sleep deprivation.
Mm-hmm.
Although, of course, postmenopausal women often get hit with it across the head when
Yes.
they go weeks upon weeks without sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But what simple changes can people make to improve their sleep quality?
If anyone has raised a baby, they know that it really requires training. And so the number one thing to do is stay consistent. Keep a regular bedtime. So that the typical bedtime that we adapt best to is 10 to 10:30. That won't be for everyone. We all have different lives and different demands on our lives, but that's the ideal time frame if you can control that part. And so since we're trying to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, then maybe, waking up somewhere between 5 and 7:30 every morning would be ideal. So really just keeping that schedule. There's all sorts of things to do to try to get your brain into that pattern, and really with the help of a sleep specialist or something like that. Those specialists are available if people need help or if their primary care doctor isn't able to kind of guide them in that. But staying consistent with sleep is very big. And then removing the screens out of the bedroom. A lot of people have heard that. Not drinking alcohol more than 3 hours before bedtime or eating 3 hours before bedtime. So just trying to follow those simple rules can help set you up for developing a good sleep pattern.
So I guess we should mention that there is lifestyle assessment
Mm-hmm.
that people can do on their own,
Mm-hmm.
and they could fill it out. It's like a quiz, and
Yes.
then take it to their doctors so they can see which pillar it is that they really need to work on.
Yes.
So perhaps at the end, we can put a link or something to the lifestyle assessment.
Mm-hmm.
I think you used the one with the American Academy of Family Physicians.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's open to the public. Everyone can log on and
Yes.
take the test,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll show you graphically
Mm-hmm.
where your pillars need to be propped up, so to speak.
Yes. Yes.
Let's talk about what nobody likes to hear about physical activity.
Yes.
So, for someone just starting out, what are some practical ways to incorporate movement into daily life?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Physical activity is so important. I think a lot of people are surprised to know that physical inactivity is one of the leading causes of illness and death. So a lot of people think about smoking, but statistically speaking, being physically inactive is worse than smoking on your health. So it's really just important to incorporate movement into your life every day. Daily activity is going to the grocery store, cleaning your house, things like that. But exercise really is a purposeful, planned movement. So being physically active is important, but having that exercise component where you have it planned into your day, a certain amount of time, that is the part that really helps keep your heart and lungs strong and helps maintain your muscle mass. I think it depends where people are. But if people are completely sedentary, then perhaps starting with a physical therapist would be helpful if they already are weak or they can't get up off the floor on their own. Or if other people, they can move, they just aren't really sure how to do things, then maybe getting a personal trainer can be helpful.
Now, is it necessary for someone to go to the gym in order to do
Mm.
the physical activity that is required to extend their life?
Yeah, absolutely not. Nobody needs a gym, but you do need the proper equipment to be able to get your cardio in, to get your heart rate up, and then to lift weights. So I'm a mom of 5. I do not have time to go to a gym, but I have all the things at home. I have a treadmill at home, I have jump rope, I have weights. So those are all things that I keep at home because I don't have the ability to go to a gym.
Now, a lot of postmenopausal women do not realize how much importance should be given to actual weight training.
Mhm.
So, even though they're doing the aerobic stuff, can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of muscle mass as we get older?
Yes, it is critical for women in menopause and postmenopause to be lifting weights. When women first enter menopause, they can lose perhaps 1 to 2% of their muscle mass in those first years of menopause. And then after that, it tends to kind of stable off to around 1% per year. And that 1% actually starts when we turn 40, both for men and women. It's just women are at particular danger because when estrogen goes away, that muscle mass loss is accelerated. And if we don't do anything about it, then we just continue to lose muscle mass. And that makes us weak and frail when we get older. But skeletal muscle is also the house of our metabolism. And so when a lot of women say, I gained 10 pounds, I didn't do anything different. I'm eating the same, I'm exercising the same. And a lot of that is because they're not lifting weights. They're just going for their 3-mile walk every day or something like that. So lifting weights is a critical part of their regimen for exercise.
And it also helps osteoporosis prevention.
Yes, absolutely. Keeping the bone strong.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So these are issues that I think women don't hear enough about.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is, okay, yes, I do my yoga, I do this when I have time,
Right.
but somehow or the other, we have to bring it to the forefront of understanding that it's actually a pillar of
Mm-hmm.
health.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a recreational, fun thing that you do if you feel like it.
Right, right.
So, how do you prescribe exercise to your patients?
Mm-hmm. What I tell my patients, and it kind of varies a little bit depending on who it is I'm talking to, but in general, I would say 4 to 5 days per week cardio. And some of that we would say is zone 2. That's where, if you were walking with a friend, you're walking fast enough that you're breathless, but you can still talk. You just couldn't sing along to a song. That's enough that it's getting your heart rate up. That's ideal to do 4 to 5 days per week. Some women could incorporate what we call a HIIT workout as one of those days, where that's just a really quick, like a 20-minute, you're going super hard. You are not talking to anybody because you're just focused so hard and breathing so hard. That's what a HIIT workout is. And that's good for your heart too, to kind of reach that really high heart rate. But 2 days a week should be strength training. Some women or men need to do 3, but 2 is the minimum. And it doesn't have to be you're in the gym or lifting weights for an hour long, 20 to 30 minutes, as long as you're getting all of those big muscle groups. So I'll tell some of my patients, pick one day as your arm day, your upper body day, the other day is your leg day. And we want to do kind of the push pull. So the tricep sort of moves, or tricep kickbacks, and the bicep, the chest fly. Those are all very good to do for the upper body. And then the lower body is kind of the hinging. So a Romanian deadlift or squats. Those sorts of things are powerhouse moves that get all of those big muscle groups. And that's important because those are the ones we use to pick up our grandkids or to lift up 2 big grocery sacks and carry them into your house from the car. So it's not really about trying to bulk up. It's simulating things that are the activities we're doing now that we want to make sure we can still do as we get older.
In real life, yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think also we have to be mindful of our internal dialogue when we're exercising.
Yes,
If we're saying
absolutely.
things to ourselves like, I can't do this, I'm never going to be able to, I don't have time, I
Mhm.
don't see any changes, those kind of negative thoughts are actually causing us not to be able to achieve our goals.
Right.
So we do have to be mindful of our internal dialogue
Yes.
as opposed to someone else standing behind us with a whip.
Right. Mindset is
So
so
let's talk
important.
about diet. Yes, let's talk about diet. So the standard American diet
Hmm.
is SAD,
Yeah.
SAD. And there's a reason for this. Do you want to tell us about that? There's so much conflicting information about diet.
Hmm.
How can someone cut through the noise and focus on what is actually important?
Hmm. You're right. Yeah. The standard American diet is basically a host of processed foods, ultra refined carbohydrates, all things that are produced in the factory, not from a farm field or things like that. Unfortunately, those foods that are so heavily processed have been stripped of all of their nutrients, or they have, some toxic dyes, food dyes in them. A lot of that's in the media right now as far as attention to particular seed oils and red number and the yellow number, whatever. It's not good for our brains or our gut. That is the standard American diet. I think if you walk down the cereal aisle, that is the standard American diet on display. When you've got all of these cereals where sugar is the second or third ingredient and all of these colors and marshmallows and things like that that are not a good part of our diet.
And don't forget the soda to wash it down.
Oh, right. Yes. All of the sugar sweetened beverages that it's way too much sugar.
Yeah. So, what are the most common dietary mistakes that you see in your practice, and
Mhm.
how can people correct them? I think as soon as you talk about diet, people are scared that you're going to tell them that they have to sit and eat celery sticks all day.
Right. Where most people are going wrong is they're eating far too many carbohydrates. When we're adults, we're not growing anymore. So we don't need so many carbs as what kids do. And most Americans aren't eating enough protein. 45% of Americans are not eating enough protein. And that's a big deal because you need protein to rebuild muscle, to keep your organs healthy, to keep your brain healthy. The ratios of the foods people are eating is off. They're not eating enough fruits and vegetables, or they're relying on a processed version and thinking that that's good enough. For example, the veggie straws or the little pouches that I see sometimes, toddlers and elementary school
For
kids
the
just
kids.
squirting the puree into their mouths. It's stripped of fiber. Americans are just not getting enough of those good nutrients.
So, how much fiber do we actually need?
We need about 25 grams of fiber a day. And that looks like anywhere from 4 to 6 servings per day of fruits or vegetables, depending on which ones you like. Internet is great to look up different things that people would like, fruits or vegetables, to find out how much fiber in it, in what they're eating. Avocados are a huge source of fiber. There's always ground flaxseed and chia seeds and things like that. If people don't like to eat a gigantic salad, then they can use some of those other things to get that extra fiber in.
I'm going to share, if it's okay with you,
Yeah.
your list of things as in terms of fiber,
Yes.
so women have an idea of what they can do on their own to
Hmm.
create a healthy diet.
Yes.
And how about protein?
Hmm. So, a lot of debate about how much protein we should be eating. And if you did a Google search, you would probably see the USDA recommendation of zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of protein a day. But that's a misunderstanding because that's how much we need for survival. And we women are not trying to survive, we're trying to thrive. And what we really should be doing is either 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, or the calculation I like to use, because I don't like to focus on ideal body weight. We're all made differently. Another equation where at 5 feet tall, we need 100 grams of protein. And then for every inch taller, that's 5 more grams of protein. So I'm 5'6". That would mean I need 130 grams of protein a day to make sure I protect my muscle mass.
And how do we squeeze in 130 grams of protein?
Yeah.
Now that's tough.
It is difficult, and I don't get there every day. I will admit that. It is very hard. You don't want to get that all at once. So the best thing to do is to divide it up into 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal. Again, if I need 130 grams of protein a day, then I could divide that up into 40, 40, and 50, or people can do kind of their own math of what they would need. But you would really want to get at least 30 grams of protein per meal, because that is what triggers muscle protein synthesis. So when you're lifting weights, you need to eat protein along with it to be building muscle. And so if you're just getting a little 10-gram protein bar, that's not enough to tell your body, hey, send all of those amino acids to your muscles to make you stronger. So we want to really just get at least 30 per meal.
So now we have increased everybody's stress, having to listen to all the things that we're not doing right. And let's talk about stress management.
Yes.
How can people determine what their stresses are and how it is actually affecting their health?
Stress is so prevalent in our society today. The one thing that I ask my patients is, how much control do you feel you have over the important things in your life? And if my patients tell me I have no control over anything, then they're going to be under tremendous stress. So when we feel like we have control, then we don't feel as stressed out. We feel we have agency to change our situation or make our lives better. So that is one question that I do ask my patients when I'm trying to get a feel for how much stress they're under.
And how does chronic stress actually impact overall health?
Mm-hmm.
And what strategies do you recommend for managing it effectively?
Yeah, stress can increase our cortisol levels. It increases all sorts of oxidative processes that go on. And so, unscientific way I can describe it, it just accelerates aging. All of the cells are exposed to kind of toxic sequelae of stress. We can just feel older quicker when we're stressed out. And it can also cause weight gain. We're not going to sleep very well. And so that causes a whole host of problems. Then we start snacking at night because we're up, and then we gain weight, or all that extra cortisol tells our body, store all these calories, don't burn them off. There's just a whole host of things that can happen if we're really stressed. Yeah, some of the things we can do about that really just depends on what do people enjoy. If people have a very active prayer life, that can be helpful. If they have a faith, so going to church or meditation or yoga, there's all sorts of things that are out there, even some apps that can help people to kind of de-stress after a difficult day.
How about stress techniques that are especially helpful for busy people who feel totally overwhelmed and not able to get to a yoga class?
Yeah, that's where I think the apps come in handy. And there are a lot of free apps that are out there. So one is called Calm, the other is called Mindshift. There are a PTSD app. There are lots of different apps that I would encourage people to, either talk to their doctor about, or, do their own kind of research for different free apps on stress management. That way they can do it on their couch without it costing them any money.
And neither one of us is a psychologist, and we're not trying to pretend to be.
Right.
But a lot of people also have what we call the ACEs, right? Do you want to explain what an ACE is?
Yeah, there's more attention on ACEs now. So those are adverse childhood events. And 6 out of 10 adults have experienced an adverse childhood event. So that could be losing a parent, or being exposed to hunger, or frequent moving, an unstable household, or some sort of illness or injury in childhood that really kind of impacted how they grew up. And all of those sorts of negative experiences shape who we are as an adult. And sometimes people don't recognize how much it has shaped us. And so we can carry that
Right.
baggage into adulthood. And sometimes it can lead to coping mechanisms that aren't very healthy. Talking to your doctor about any sort of childhood experience that was difficult for you and maybe kind of impacts who you are today, that's incredibly helpful. or reaching out to a therapist who's experienced in trauma is going to be healing rather than hurtful.
So, one of the things that I say to people, and this leads into our next topic, which is social connection.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of the house.
Yes. Yes.
Just get out. I think a lot of people, as they get older, they just find a lot of excuses not to go anywhere, or they feel they don't have friends, or
Mm-hmm.
they're no longer participating in activities. And so, it's the TV or the internet.
Yes.
What role does social connection play in physical and emotional health?
Mm-hmm. We're social beings. Humans enjoy being around other humans, and we get so much from that with intellectual stimulation or that emotional connection that really helps to keep our brains healthy. I see this all the time as a family doctor, as someone who takes care of people of all ages. I see when the elderly are, maybe they're very connected to their neighborhood and then they move to a different area that's, maybe they were in a 2-level and they moved to a ranch that is now on a lot of acreage so their neighbors aren't nearby. And now they're sitting at home every day. They're not getting out and taking that walk to talk to neighbors like they had before. And we can see a lot of decline happen from that. We saw it for sure in
Right.
COVID when the elderly were, the intent was to protect them, but instead when they were isolated in their room for weeks on end, there was incredible deterioration there, a lot of depression and confusion, all sorts of bad things.
Yes, my mother was one of them. My mother is 93 now, but during COVID, she really deteriorated.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who was independent, strong, went to the library all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and she just went downhill after that.
Right. Yeah.
So, how does someone strengthen their social network if they are feeling isolated
Yeah.
outside of COVID?
Yeah, think about who they are. Are they an introvert or an extrovert? Because there's different things that are going to be geared towards those people. And then think of the things that bring you joy. Does being around babies bring you joy? Maybe you can volunteer at a local nursery or something like that and just rock the babies, or go to your local library. There's a wealth of information at the library of forever learning sort of classes, or the 50 and over who meets to go a book club or a knitting club, a walking club. There's all sorts of things like that in libraries or other sorts of communities that people can reach out to and try to find a
Right.
connection.
So the first step is get out of the house.
Get out. Yes, yes.
Our last pillar is avoiding toxic substances. And I think a lot of people say, well, I'm not addicted to anything. What do
Mm-hmm.
you have to say about that?
Yeah, so the 3 biggest toxic substances are tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana. And I think most people understand nowadays that smoking tobacco, or even chewing tobacco, that it's not healthy, just period, not healthy. Alcohol is another one where sometimes people may not really feel like an alcoholic if they're used to 2 drinks every day, and they may not be an alcoholic. But for example, a conversation I had just yesterday with a 78-year-old patient of mine, she was in the habit of drinking 2 glasses of wine every night, but she didn't make the connection for how she felt the next morning. And I think any woman on the other side of menopause knows that wine is going to hit you a lot harder the next day. Yes, we're not an alcoholic, but we may have to tailor back on the alcohol because it's just a neurotoxin. It's not going to help our brains operate better. And with menopause, our brains already have trouble operating on all cylinders sometimes. So just being very careful about alcohol is helpful. And then marijuana, there's just a giant misunderstanding with marijuana, I believe. It's been legalized in many states, but a lot of people don't understand that the potency over time has really increased. When in the 1970s, it used to be under 1% potency. Now it's 15 to 20% potency. And so that joint that people could be smoking or that gummy could be extremely potent, more so than what they realize. So it's going to affect them more. For people who are smoking marijuana regularly, that's definitely going to impact their bodies in very negative ways.
And there are more and more people showing up in the ER
Mhm.
with marijuana related conditions.
Yes.
And yet we don't hear anything about those. I mean, we do because we're in the medical field,
Right.
but I think the average person doesn't hear anything about recreational marijuana. But I'm
Yes.
sure you've had patients who can't stop vomiting or,
Yes.
have GI problems. There's a relationship between marijuana and other things that happen in the body. It's not just making you feel good.
Exactly. Yeah. And even with mental health, there's a segment of the population who has a gene that's linked to schizophrenia. And so the more that people use marijuana, that can turn on that gene and kind of cause this psychotic event that leads to a schizophrenia type illness for the rest of their lives. And to me, that's
Right.
extremely frightening to think about that happening.
So, how can someone identify which pillar needs the most attention in their life?
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want people to feel overwhelmed that we're trying to tell them that all six of their pillars need to be upright all the time. They need to live this perfect life, that nobody's perfect. And at any given time, we're going to have a pillar or two that's not where it should be. But I think it's really focusing on what is the weakest link, and using that assessment tool can tease that out, where it's just asking you those questions that's going to show you, oh, okay, wow, I'm really not eating any fruits and vegetables, or I need to work on my sleep. And then prioritize the one that you want to work on. If you realize that, my diet is the thing that matters the most to me, I'm going to work on that first. Wonderful. Work with your doctor on how to start to make small changes over time. We're not trying to do a 180 by the end of the day.
So, what's the best way to approach a doctor about integrating a lifestyle plan into their care?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to mention the little caveat that patients and doctors are both aware that doctors have like no time
Yes.
to spend discussing all these issues.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and to me, that is the real tragedy, is the typical 10 to 15-minute office visit that doctors have with their patients. And so it can be extremely hard to really dive deep, even into one pillar. And so it's just going to have to be broken up over time. I'm a direct primary care doctor, so I get an hour with my patients. And so we really can be productive in that hour, but not all doctors have that luxury. So I would encourage patients, if they can be prepared for that visit, to go to that visit with that assessment tool already done and say, I did this, I want to work on whatever pillar they want to work on. And, their doctor is going to know how to help them with those six pillars, even if thus far they have not put it in that sort of framework already. And that's where it really can put the patient in the driver's seat, because we own our own health. Actually, I should say,
Yeah.
our health is rented. It's never owned, and the rent is due every day. I love that saying. We really have to be as proactive as we can be with our own health.
What strategies do you recommend for staying motivated to make these changes long term?
I think the way to stay motivated is to make very small goals. Don't try to set some big goal that you're not going to be able to reach because it's too lofty or unrealistic. So you need to make a very realistic goal that's doable for your life, and make it very specific. So I'm going to eat 2 pieces of broccoli with my lunch every day because I love broccoli and I'm not eating vegetables. That's just what I'm going to focus on. Or I've never been strength training. I got a online membership where I can work with this person online. I'm going to start doing that 2 days a week, just for 10 minutes, just to get the habit ready. That's the best way to go about it. Make it very simple and very specific.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
And as people start to feel better, then it becomes a habit.
Yes,
And then once it's a habit, you're home free.
exactly.
Um, Also, keep in mind what the alternative is,
Right.
and it's not pretty.
Yes, exactly.
So, once again, that internal dialogue, when you're telling yourself, well, this is too hard, or I don't have the time,
Mm-hmm.
just stop and think about 10 years from now. where you'd like to be, what you'd like to be
Mm-hmm.
in terms of physical, and whether you want to have someone wheeling you around
Mm-hmm.
or whether you want to spend most of your monthly savings on chronic health care.
Right.
No matter where you are, you need to start where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone can benefit from the 6 pillars of health. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I agree with that.
That's why I love family physicians, because they're so proactive and look at the whole patient.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. The whole
if
picture.
we were talking with a cardiologist here, he'd be going on and on about cholesterol. Yeah. So, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's just beginning the journey towards better health? I guess you told us a little bit about that.
Mhm.
Start where you are, a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And we are going to share a few resources, correct?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's New Year's Day, so a great time to just reflect on what are your goals and imagine who you are at the end of 2025 and just start to reverse engineer that and month by month go backwards. And that gives you the plan for where you are today. You have to start somewhere.
So, thank you so much once again, Sarah, for joining us on New Year's Day. It's really been wonderful having you.
Thank you, Nadia. It's
And
been my pleasure.
I'm sure people got a lot of information from this. And if you have more questions, I'm sure Dr. Bajuso doesn't mind sharing. You can
Absolutely.
send her,
Yes,
you know,
I'm all for
send
giving information.
her. I'm volunteering you here. But if you have a short question that you'd like to ask
Mhm.
Dr. Bajuso, please do just hit the link and I'll get it to her. And once again, Sarah, so much fun having you on. We'll have to talk about some other subjects in the future because, as I said, we're both family physicians, so our scope is wide.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely all about helping our fellow sisters to be stronger.
absolutely. So have a good day and have a great year if I
Okay.
don't talk to you soon.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you for once again joining me on this new episode of Wellness and Wisdom. As we step into 2025, let's take a moment to reflect on the projects, dreams, relationships, and ambitions that we've nurtured, and most importantly, our health. The 6 pillars of health are here to guide us towards living our best lives. Which pillars do you need to focus on? Be honest with yourself, and if you need help, ask for it today. Ask boldly. You deserve to thrive. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to subscribe and join me in the next episode. It's going to be a great year. Take care of yourself and enjoy it. Bye for now.